All right, I'm just going to be the one to say it. That child that you're grieving, that one that's out there and won't talk to you, that's not your child. That's the child that you have that lives in your imagination, that you created when they were little. That child does not exist. That person you're mourning is not the person they are. Because if they were that cute, sweet, fill in the blank here person, we wouldn't be in this situation.
Did she just tell on herself? Are you catching it? Here's my question to you. Right now, in this moment, please comment if you heard something around that makes you also feel that she's telling on herself. And she is actually, I hate to say it, right in a way. Let me fill in the blank. That cute, sweet fill in the blank. Remember? That vulnerable, completely underneath your thumb and control, 100,000 bajillion, there's not a number high enough percent, dependent on you for everything to keep them alive and in their life. That child being the operative word. And no, that isn't who you are estranged from. That child, legitimately a child, could not estrange from you, could not escape, could not go no contact, could not provide for themselves. I tried. And my story, listen, my story, it's not a story. My life experiences, the truth, not my truth. I hate that whole my truth thing. I'm going to do a whole video on that. Anyway, throughout my childhood, beginning at the age of around 5, 6 years old, closer to 6. And the only picture I have from that era of my life, I'm 7. Anyway, I started running away around that age. It was after my mother dropped me out of a 2-story window. And I was trying to find my daddy because around that age, what I believe happened, and there's some verification but not complete, was that my biological father, who I did have a good relationship with in my adult life, there's a tab on the main page under dads. You can get the backstory there. I met him for a very brief period. And so because of what was going on in my grandparents' house and what had gone on with my mother and was still going on, I was living with my grandparents at the time, but she came on the scene and tortured whenever she was around, tortured me whenever she was around. And so I kept running to try to find my daddy's building, which was the Montreal Forum. And we lived in Westmount for anyone who's a Montrealer out there or familiar with Montreal. And so I would walk towards the tall buildings. One time I even got on a bus. I was trying to escape to something or someone, an idea of someone as well. And then when my mother showed up with my new stepdaddy, I met my stepdaddies after they got married. Daddies, plural, yes. We moved to Miami and I adored him. He was wonderful. The first one was wonderful. The second one was good, but the first one was the one where I got to have a parent experience, like a dad who really loved me and showed me care and was a nurturer and all the things safe that I needed in my life that every child needs and deserves. When he would go out of town, my mother had the opportunity to take her abuse to the next level. Normally she kept it under wraps. Not that it wasn't a daily confusion and mindfuck in that household. She did lots of things, but it wouldn't be to the same, or I should say, however, I don't want to negate the statement. However, it wouldn't be to the level of abuse that it was when there would be no opportunity for protection. And so when he would go out of town and she would ramp that up, I would run away. And I did it a lot. I did it enough for the police to know who I was. I did enough for all the neighbors to know I was running. And then at the age of 13, I finally did escape and I ended up living on the streets and I raised myself off up off the streets from the age of 13 to 14 and a half. I lived pretty solidly on the streets. So that's the backstory for those of you that are new here in our community of adult survivors pretty much of narcissistic family systems. And I say pretty much because there's always a gray area. And there's some estranged parents here who passed down trauma, who are living that nightmare. They did the love they knew, and they married an abuser, probably a narcissistic one. I did that too. And all the things. So we're not one size fits all. We have a theme here. If but she's your mother means something to you other than, but she's your mother, you should, whatever. That's why you're here. So as a child, I managed to escape, not in the most ideal way, obviously. When we become adults and we're always going to be somebody's daughter, such a weird concept, or somebody's son. I mean, that's, a biological fact, just like my mother will always be my biological mother. She was never my mom. She was never what I consider a mom to be, or most of us do, someone who was loving and nurturing and all those things. So for all of us adult sons and adult daughters, when we turned 18, and some of us had the opportunity to go to university. I didn't even go to high school. I got a GED, and then I put myself through school on and off throughout the years and all the things. Some people could escape through going to university. Others escape through marriage. Others escape just by getting a job and getting out, and still stayed in those relationships. And what started to create distance in those relationships were the contrasting experiences that we could now have in adult life, because they no longer had complete and ultimate control over us, because we are no longer the children that they miss. We are now the adults that they should have loved and supported, and, been the type of parent to an adult that we could be in a relationship with, let alone want to be in a relationship with. And so what happens? Some of us go to therapy, hopefully sooner than later. It took me a little while. I was 26. My mother sabotaged my first therapy go round when I was 17. So it took me a little while. I'm not throwing shade on myself for that. That's what it took. I went. I learned lots and lots of things throughout that process. I was already at that point 4 years-ish estranged from my mother. Throughout that, I estranged from my grandparents. And then everybody estranged from me, because in a narcissistic family system, when the scapegoat escapes, they band together. In a dysfunctional family, when these breakdowns in the relationship happen and people estranged, they don't lose all of their family relationships. That's one of the marked differences between the two, one of many. So I lost everyone that I came to realize I never had, because they work as a system. They don't work as people who function in, their own relationships through their own choices and things like that. There's a lot of brainwashing and a lot of codependency, enmeshment, all the things. So anyway, she told the truth. We are, many of us, the children that they missed, and now we're the adults that they don't know and that they don't miss, because they don't have control over us. And when we come back in as an adult and we start to try to unpack things and have deeper relationships, or a deep relationship, create boundaries and all the things, you're not the child that I raised. No truer words were ever spoken. Sometimes they tell the truth. There's more. Let's get into her a little bit deeper. And I don't know her backstory, because I didn't look through all her videos. I'm going with the vibe that I'm not picking up what she's putting down. I'm more like carrying it from one place to another. I'm trying not to be so snarky sparky, but they make it difficult.
All right. Question for the estranged, let me just say this, for the people that chose the estrangement situation, what would the other party or parties have to do for you to be able to go back and not begrudgingly give them the relationship they're wanting, but to enter into a healthy relationship, what would they have to do?
I find her wording so interesting. Also, I didn't deep dive on her. However, I did enough of a dive to see that she breaks down some research studies and things like that. So it seems to me that she's almost trying to learn what you're supposed to do, but can't really understand it. So she's regurgitating things. Kind of like an apology, even for the things I know I didn't do. Almost like, you know, do you understand? If you do, drop a comment, put a hand, do something. Gold star. First of all, for those of us who chose to estrange, so that could also be estranged parents, right? That's not who she's addressing. I don't know why she switched it up. She's clearly targeting, and I don't mean like trying to like do something bad necessarily, but she's targeting, for lack of a better word. I'm a lot on the butt today. I have to stop that. However, she is targeting estranged adult daughters and sons, children, by her estimation. And the first thing that I want to say to that in response is that none of us, in my opinion, and I don't like absolutes, I'll go out on a limb though, none of us adult daughters and sons are choosing the estrangement. Their behavior, the way that they are abusive, their refusal to do better, let alone take accountability for the things they've already done, is what dictates where that relationship does or doesn't end up. That's not like going to the ice cream store and saying, oh, do I want vanilla or chocolate? Those are options. Those are choices that are, within our control to a great degree. And maybe that's not the best example. I just can't think of one off the top of my head at the moment. Maybe it'll come to me later on. If you know, you know though. So my mother's behavior dictated what I had to do unless I wanted to choose her instead of choosing me. And my survival, not just survival, survival. Her behavior dictated what I had to do for my own children to be emotionally safe. She chose her behavior. I responded to that behavior. And what would it take? Well, I mean, my ship has sailed completely because I recognize that there is a point in every relationship, good or bad, where you know whether or not you're safe and you should be there and the other person can be trusted. My mother's relationship, mine with her and the rest of the relatives, the majority of them, I can't say I wouldn't entertain conversations with some of my relatives from that side. Like I would entertain a conversation with my ex-favorite aunt. And that's because I think that she has the capacity to do better and to show up and actually be a trustworthy person. I do believe she has that capacity. I also believe she doesn't have the desire to. So it's kind of a weird thing. I'm just thinking about this out loud as I'm making this video. So, I don't close the doors on relationships and go that they're always going to be, the way that they are and it's a closed door, like on the whole. I do close the doors on certain relationships with the recognition and understanding. And by the way, when I went no contact with my mother, I didn't have that recognition it was going to be forever. I really thought a lot of what she had done to me was because of me. Pre-therapy and all the things. So for my mother, the ship has completely sailed because, well, aside from the fact she's a criminal, sorry. And I believe that I'm keeping the blooper in. And I believe that she is also a murderer. It would be like asking me, what would it take for me to be in a relationship with Ted Bundy? Stupidity, a lack of self-care, love, self-esteem, that's the reality. She can never be trusted. Period. End of story. And I have no desire to be in a relationship with someone who can never be trusted. Aside from that, this whole begrudgingly and whatever, give them the relationship that they want. That was also an interesting choice of words. I don't give people the relationship that they want. I participate in relationships that we want. And for me, my relationships have to have a feeling of safety. I want to know that I am seen and that I am valued. I like to say cherished. That is what I provide also. That is the bar of what I provide for myself. That is the bar for what I provide for the people who are in my life. And that is what I also, I don't like the word expect, but I can't think of a better one in here, expect to receive reciprocally. It's not transactional. So I'm pretty sure she's not going to like that answer. Do you think she'll like the answer? I doubt she'll see these videos, and I don't really care. I do this in a very, in my opinion, nice way. I don't give their screen names, their handles, or whatever, because I'm not really interested in creating more division. I'm interested in healing and education. So I don't create situations where other people can go and, pummel their pages and things like that. The exception is that sometimes I'll do it where a child is being exploited, because I'd like to see people report the videos so that they're taken down. Otherwise, like with this, that's why I doubt she'll ever see it. So let's go to the next one. I also don't put any of my long form, for the most part, every now and again an exception, on the TT. I don't waste my time. There's a lot of censorship. I get very little out of it. I do put content out there. And when I say I get little out of it, there's a lot of hard work behind the scenes that goes into this. For example, this video might end up being 30 minutes long. That means I'm editing it for 90 minutes afterwards, because I have to put her picture here, and I have to, do the volume things and all the stuff so that you guys can watch it. So there's stuff that's taken away if a siren goes by and whatever. Sometimes I leave the flubs in, sometimes I don't. And to go through all that work only to have it taken down because somebody says it's bullying and harassment, and sometimes I can get it put back up and sometimes I can't, isn't valuable to me. So I put up there what I know will probably stay, because I do love my community there and on all of our platforms, and I want to be able to connect. I just have to do it in a way that makes the most sense. Also, just as a little side note, I do have more healing tip journal prompts, kind of content now that's available. If you hit the join button on this video, you can access those materials. I have some videos that I make for the membership part. So, there's subscriptions, which are free. And then there's the membership part, which I keep it I think it's $3 or $4 or something like that. And it, kind of helps me a little bit because I put a little time in this. And it also allows me, because that's smaller, we're heading towards 10,000 subscribers right now. So exciting and sad at the same time, because I wish there weren't so many of us. And I'm glad that we found each other. On the membership portion, because it's smaller, I'm able to, connect a little bit deeper. You can ask me for a direct healing video, things like that. Not to say if you ask for it on here, I won't do it. Of course I will, if it's going to appeal to the masses, especially. Over there, though, I'm going to do it whether or not it appeals to the masses. So either way, I love that you're here with me, and I thank you so much. And let's cover one more of her videos. Or two. I don't remember how many I put together.
Just had another bit of inspiration. Was reading or watching where somebody was saying, I told them not to do this, or I keep having to tell them over and over. How many posts have I read that said that? When you tell somebody 100,000 times not to do something and they keep doing it. Well, okay, so let's just say that they're repeating some secret that was supposed to be between you. The boundary has to be with you then. I don't tell them my secrets. You can't expect them to be somebody that can hold a secret. Some people just can't hold secrets. But that doesn't mean that they're being abusive to you or that they're intentionally trying to cross your boundary or that you need to cut them out of your life. That means you're expecting them to change their behavior, but you're not willing to change yours. So you change yours. Don't tell them the thing you don't want talked out, and problem solved. Some of these boundaries go both ways.
Well, damn, problem solved. So I should adjust my behavior to stay in a relationship with someone who isn't trustworthy. Cool. That's valuable to me. Safe, seen, cherished out the door, you know? Like, I should be in relationships with people that I don't trust or that can't help it if they cross my boundaries 1,000 bajillion times over, whatever she said. That's a quality. Oh, sign me up. That's what I want in my relationships. I want to be in relationships with people who don't care about my boundaries, or worse yet, they do and they weaponize them to hurt me. Wow, she is really missing the boat on that one. Oh, but they're your mom, but they're your dad, but she's your mother, they were your parents. Like, can't you find a way to change, to navigate them? Well, that's what we did through our whole childhood. We emotionally cared for our parents by virtue of the fact that we were giving them everything they wanted because we had to in order to survive them. And now as adults, they have the expectation, that's what I'm hearing, that we continue to do the same. We should alter our behavior when somebody violates us. I'm gobsmacked. Like, I don't even think Snarky Sparky is going to cover it on this one. This is how these relationships and those kinds of even expectations start to devolve into nothingness. As a therapist who works with families, and the way I work with families is sometimes I'll have I have, for example, I have 3 members of a family right now, and they're a family of 6, and I know that I'll see some other members in the family here and there, but 3 of them are my main people. 2 of them are daughters, and 1 of them is a mother. And by the way, for anyone out there, I'm allowed to talk about this stuff online. I'm being very vague. I'm not identifying anything or anyone. My clients do watch my videos. I have had clients in the past that I don't have currently who say, please don't ever tell any part of my story, even though it's anonymous. And I will not, I do not. End of story. I don't do it. So just so that we're very clear, I am a safe space, and I'm very careful about how I speak about these things, because that's what we're supposed to do. That's what we should do. Like, that's just being a healthy, emotionally healthy human, I guess, because I like to stay away from good or bad. Anyway, what's happening right now in this dynamic, and it's just at the beginning of happening, and I'm going to do my very best to help it not happen in the way that it's rolling out. And so the mom and I are really going to start to work together more. She wanted to go to like every 2 or 3 weeks seeing me, and I was like, no, you have a choice. However, we're not here for a catch up. If you really want to do better, and I know that she does, and you want to help yourself, we need to be consistent for at least a couple of months and get some things in order, because there are some things happening that your relationships are changing because you have adult daughters and you don't know how to be a parent of adult daughters. That's what's happening. I don't word it necessarily that way, just, don't get all up in an uproar, but that's the theme. And so what's now happening is the mom told somebody something she wasn't supposed to tell. And if she had gone to the daughter and said, hey, I think this information is kind of pertinent to what's going on right now. Like, we kind of should be sharing this, and gave her opinion and had a conversation around it, it actually would have been okay. But this mom doesn't know how to do that, because she was raised in a very tumultuous environment where there were no communication skills going on. And she's literally now learning a new skill. You know, this doesn't happen out of nowhere, that these mindsets are in place. And so because this happened, and then when the daughter said, did you tell? And the daughter wasn't angry. The daughter said, like, I'm going to tell them. I just want to know if you did or not. Like, the daughter didn't want to feel stupid. She kind of felt like her mother probably did tell. And so she went to her, and the mother doubled down and lied about it. And then she got caught in a lie, and then she made up another lie. And then the daughter really lost it, and like it became a whole thing. And now the daughter's like, I'm just not going to tell her things anymore. And she wants to be able to rely on her mother this way. And her mother actually does want to be reliable in this way. It's just sometimes her emotional immaturity really gets the best out of her, and her fear of abandonment and being judged and doing the wrong thing. And then she does the wrong thing. These relationships with parents who are not narcissistic, but rather emotionally immature, are complicated. And there are skills that can be learned through the healing of the wounds that are creating your mechanisms if you want to do better. And this thing about you want them to change, but you don't change, actually, as we become adults, hopefully we're evolving. We are, by definition, changing. It is that they will not change their parenting practices from when you were a child and evolve into where we are now as adults. I hate when I hear messaging like this, because it's like giving permission to these parents who are doing poorly to continue to do poorly, and putting the expectation yet again on the adult son and the adult daughter. I'm staying away from adult children. I'm doing this by design. I want to stop us from calling ourselves children now. I'm an adult daughter, motherless daughter, but whatever, you know, like, however, that's how I want to identify now, because I'm recognizing that they're calling us adult children to infantilize us. So I want to put the stop on that. She is giving permission for the status quo, right? And trying to manipulate she calls them adult children, into falling into the same line that they've always been in. That's why that first video, she's like, we don't miss them. We don't love them. We love the children, right? She's really telling on herself here. And at the end of the day, I like to feel like we all have the capacity to change, and we need to have the drive and the willingness to do so. And as I say that out loud, I mean, my mother could choose to do better. Will she ever be a healthy, loving, safe person? I don't think so. That doesn't mean she couldn't be better. That doesn't mean that 19 years ago, when she showed up in my life after 17 years, we couldn't have had some sort of relationship where she could at least be someone who respected boundaries and would be a safe person in that capacity. Then again, she is a sociopath, so she could do better, but she's never going to feel the things that make that stick, I guess. So I'm just unpacking this out loud right in front of you. So maybe not everybody has the capacity to change. I take it back. I made a mistake. Did I just take accountability? Yeah. Okay. Anywhoosie. Well, along those lines, actually, as I'm kind of working this out in front of you and with you, there have been studies, and I can't quote the study. I don't have it in front of me, and I'm probably not going to, maybe I'll dig it up and I'll put a link to it if I can find it. But Dr. Ramani sent it out. I subscribe to her emails and things like that. I recommend you do too. She's like amazing, all things NPD, right? Where the study has shown that NPD is not treatable. It's just not. BPD, we can treat people with borderline personality disorders. We can help them learn how to function better. We can help them learn how to regulate their nervous systems and do better and all the things. NPD, there's nothing. There's nothing that sticks. The best that we can hope for is the worst that we can hope for, that they learn cognitive empathy. And the reason it's the worst we can hope for is because once they do that, they leverage it to hurt people that much more. So that's where that's at. So I totally take back everybody has the capacity to change. Oh God. I'm going to be thinking about that for a while. Anyway, I'm going to see if there's one more video. And if there's not, I won't be back. I'll see you soon. And if there is, well, stay tuned.